Something was wrong in the town of Willow Creek. Very wrong. People were going to sleep and never waking up. This wasn't the peaceful kind of passing that old folks sometimes have in their beds. No, this was something else entirely. Something terrifying. The whispers started in the morning, over coffee at the diner and in the checkout lines at the grocery store. They said the bodies were found in strange positions, twisted, bent, as if they had been folded into a shape they were never meant to hold. It was a nightmare that didn't end when the sun came up. It was just beginning. The first victim was Mr. Abernathy, the old librarian. He lived alone in a small house filled with books. The police said it was a heart attack, but the rumors said otherwise. They whispered that his limbs were bent at impossible angles. His spine snapped like a dry twig. Then came Mrs. Gable from down the street. She was a sweet old lady who baked cookies for the neighborhood kids. She was found the same way. Her bed, a brand new plush mattress she had just bought, looked perfectly normal. But she was not. She was a broken doll left in the middle of it. The town grew colder, even under the warm August sun. People started to fear their own beds. They checked under them for monsters, like they did when they were children. But the monster wasn't under the bed. It was the bed itself. Or so the whispers claimed. Doors were locked tighter. Windows were bolted shut. But it didn't help. The deaths continued, always at night, always when the victim was sound asleep. The fear in Willow Creek was a thick, heavy blanket, smothering the town in its dark embrace. Every yawn became a little scream. Every sleepy eye held a flash of panic. No one felt safe anymore. The town's cozy, quiet streets now seemed dark and menacing. Every shadow looked like a lurking figure. Every gust of wind sounded like a ghostly moan. The police were baffled, telling everyone to stay calm, but how could they? A silent killer was stealing people from their sleep, leaving behind only mangled bodies and a growing sense of dread. The people of Willow Creek looked at their neighbors with suspicion. They looked at their own homes with fear. And every night, as they lay down to rest, they wondered if they would be the next to disappear into the terrible silent darkness. Her workshop was in the basement of an old, forgotten furniture store on the edge of town. The sign outside read Sweet Dreams Mattresses, but its windows were dusty and dark. No one ever went in or out. Downstairs, amidst the smell of sawdust and chemical adhesives, she worked. Her name was Eleanor Vance, a woman with pale skin and eyes the color of faded denim. She looked plain, unremarkable. Just another person you'd pass on the street without a second glance. She liked it that way. It made her work so much easier. Her tools were not hammers and saws, but something far more sinister. Eleanor worked with custom-ordered mattresses. Her secret ingredient was a complex system of high-tensile wires and powerful, silent hydraulic presses that she carefully embedded deep within the foam and springs. From the outside, her creations looked like any other luxury mattress. They were soft, inviting, and promised a night of perfect rest. She even stitched her own labels, with a small, almost invisible V in the corner. Her clients never knew what they were bringing into their homes. They were inviting a monster into their most vulnerable space, a monster that looked and felt like a cloud. It was a perfect, deadly trap. The mechanism was her masterpiece of malevolent engineering. It was controlled by a tiny, pressure-sensitive timer, calibrated to activate hours after a person's weight settled onto it for the night. Deep in the throes of sleep, the victim would be completely unaware as the wires began to tighten. The hydraulic plates hidden beneath layers of memory foam would begin to press. It was a slow, silent process at first. A gentle squeeze, a soft fold. The mattress would cradle its victim, then constrict with bone-shattering force, folding them in half like a letter. The only sound was the sickening crunch of bone and cartilage muffled by layers of quilted fabric. Eleanor delivered the mattresses herself, using an unmarked white van. She always wore a simple work uniform and a friendly, reassuring smile. She would help the homeowners carry the new bed into their room, offering tips on how to care for the fabric. "This one will give you the best sleep of your life," she'd say, her eyes twinkling with a dark, hidden meaning. And she was right. It would be their last sleep, their deepest sleep, an eternal slumber from which no one could ever wake up. Then, a few days later, she would read about the unfortunate accident in the local news, and a small, satisfied smile would touch her lips. Detective Miller arrived at the latest crime scene. It was the home of a young couple, the Hendersons. They were new to Willow Creek, having moved in just a month ago. Miller felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he walked up the driveway. The house was pristine, with a perfectly manicured lawn and a welcome mat on the porch. Inside, the horror was waiting. The bedroom was neat, almost untouched, except for the king-sized bed in the center of the room. The couple lay upon it, their bodies grotesquely contorted, limbs tangled together in a final macabre embrace. The sheets were barely disturbed. Miller walked around the bed, his flashlight beam cutting through the dim morning light. He noticed the mattress. It was new, pristine white, with an intricate stitching pattern on the top. He leaned in closer, his nose wrinkling at the faint chemical smell, like new car upholstery. It seemed too clean, too perfect for the scene. He ran a gloved hand over the surface. It was firm yet soft. A luxury mattress. He recognized the brand, Sweet Dreams, from an advertisement he'd seen. The company promised heavenly sleep. For the Hendersons, it had delivered an express trip to the grave. A small detail caught his eye. On the corner of the mattress tag, almost hidden in the seam, was a tiny hand-stitched letter V. It was embroidered in a slightly darker thread, easy to miss unless you were looking for it. Miller made a note of it, though he wasn't sure what it meant. A manufacturer's mark? A custom design? It felt important, like a whisper in a silent room. He looked at the victims again, their faces frozen in silent screams. Whatever had happened to them, it had happened right here, in this bed. The weapon was the bed itself. The thought was insane, but it was the only one that fit. Later that day, back at the station, Miller started digging into Sweet Dreams mattresses. The company had a registered address, but the storefront was closed down. Records showed it was a small, independent business run by a woman named Eleanor Vance. There was no photo on file, just a name and an address that led to an old, abandoned building. He found a few online reviews from months ago, all glowing. "Best sleep I've ever had. It's like sleeping on a cloud," said another. Miller shivered. These people had no idea how lucky they were to have woken up. The letter V burned in his mind. V for Vance? The connection was thin, but it was a start. The fear in Willow Creek had turned into full-blown panic. People started sleeping on their couches, on inflatable air mattresses, even on the floor. Anything to avoid their own beds. Sales of sleeping bags and floor cushions skyrocketed. The mattress stores in neighboring towns saw a strange influx of worried customers from Willow Creek, all asking for the simplest, firmest, least complicated beds they had. The town was gripped by a waking nightmare. Sleep, once a welcome escape, was now a terrifying ordeal. Every night was a gamble, every morning a relief. Eleanor watched the town's paranoia with detached amusement. It made her game more challenging, more exciting. She had to be smarter now. She couldn't just sell her special mattresses to anyone. She had to choose her targets carefully. Her next victim was Mark, a cocky young man who bragged that he wasn't afraid of some silly ghost story. He lived in a modern apartment complex and had just ordered a top-of-the-line mattress online from a national chain. He had no idea that Eleanor had intercepted the order. She had a contact inside the shipping company, a man who owed her a dangerous favor. She worked quickly in her basement workshop, preparing one of her special creations. This one was different. It was designed to look exactly like the popular Cloudrest 5000 model Mark was expecting, right down to the branded packaging and labels. She even replicated the company's logo. But deep inside its plush layers, her deadly mechanism was waiting. She delivered it herself, disguised as a delivery driver for the national chain. Mark barely glanced at her, too busy talking on his phone as she and a helper hauled the heavy mattress up to his apartment. "Just leave it there," he said, pointing to the bedroom. That night, Mark posted a photo of his new bed on social media. "Time to see what all the fuss is about. Hashtag not scared. Hashtag Cloudrest 5000, he wrote. It was the last thing he ever posted. The next morning, his cleaning lady found him. The scene was just as horrific as the others. Mark, the man who wasn't afraid, had been folded and broken by his brand new bed. The police were stumped. This wasn't a mattress from the local Sweet Dreams store. It was from a huge, reputable company. The killer was adapting, becoming bolder, and leaving them further in the dark than ever before. Detective Miller was at his desk, surrounded by crime scene photos. The images were gruesome, but he forced himself to look. He had to find the connection. He spread the photos of all the victims' beds across his desk. The Abernathy bed, the Gable bed, the Henderson's bed, and now, Mark's Cloudrest 5000. They were all different brands, different styles, but Miller felt a gnawing certainty that they were all connected. He stared at the photos for hours, his eyes tracing the quilting patterns, the seams, the labels. He was looking for the invisible thread that tied all these deaths together. He pulled out the close-up shot he had taken of the Henderson's mattress tag, the one with the tiny hand-stitched V. He then called the coroner's office and asked them to check the tags on the other mattresses, which had been collected as evidence. An hour later, the call came back. The Abernathy mattress had a V. Mrs. Gable's mattress had a V. They were all hidden in the same place, a subtle signature left by the killer, but Mark's mattress was different. The coroner reported no such mark. It seemed to be a genuine cloud rest. The theory was falling apart. Miller slammed his fist on the desk in frustration. He couldn't let it go. He drove to the evidence warehouse, a cold, cavernous building that smelled of dust and decay. He found Mark's mattress, sealed in a giant plastic bag. With a technician's help, he carefully sliced open the fabric. They peeled back the layers of foam and padding one by one. On the outside, it was perfect, but as they dug deeper, they found it. The intricate web of wires, the slim, powerful hydraulic plates. It was all there, cleverly hidden beneath the factory-made exterior. The killer hadn't just made a mattress. They had modified a real one. This changed everything. The killer was not just a manufacturer, they were a skilled technician, capable of retrofitting any mattress with their deadly device. Miller's mind raced back to Eleanor Vance, the owner of the defunct mattress store, a person with the skills and the storefront to do this kind of work. The V must be her signature, a mark of pride. On Mark's mattress, she had skipped the signature, growing more confident, more arrogant. She thought she was too smart to be caught. Miller felt a surge of adrenaline. He finally had a real suspect. Now, he just had to prove it. The case was, really consuming Detective Miller. He barely slept. And when he did, his dreams were filled with twisting bodies and the soft, inviting surfaces of deadly beds. He saw the V stitched onto his own pillowcase. He imagined the springs in his own mattress coiling like snakes, just ready to strike. He started sleeping on the lumpy couch in his office, a bottle of antacid sitting on the table next to him. The town's fear had, seeped into his own bones. He understood their terror now, the feeling of being hunted in the one place you should feel safe. He had to stop her, not just for the town, but honestly, for his own sanity. He started a deep dive into Eleanor Vance's life. It was like trying to grasp smoke. She had no family, no friends, no social media presence. She paid for everything in cash. She was pretty much a ghost. He found property records showing she had inherited the old furniture store from her father, a master craftsman who specialized in custom furniture. The pieces were starting to fit together. Her father had the skills. Had he passed them down to her? Miller found an old high school yearbook. Eleanor's photo showed a quiet, serious-looking girl with a note next to her name, winner of the state engineering fair. Miller felt a chill run down his spine. An engineering prodigy, someone with the mind to design and build such a complex and deadly machine. He visited the Sweet Dreams Mattresses store again. This time he brought a warrant and a crowbar. The front of the store was just a dusty, empty showroom, but in the back, a locked door led to a basement. Miller kicked it open. The air that rose from the stairs was cold and smelled of oil and chemicals. He drew his weapon and descended into the darkness, his flashlight beam cutting a nervous path ahead of him. The basement was the workshop he had imagined. Tools were hung neatly on the walls. Spools of high-tensile wire sat on shelves. Blueprints and schematic drawings were spread across a large workbench, showing the inner workings of her deadly designs. There were mattresses in various states of assembly, their guts exposed, revealing the sinister mechanisms within. It was a factory of death. But Eleanor was gone. The workshop was clean, orderly, but empty. She had cleared out her personal effects, leaving only the tools of her trade. She knew he was coming. The hunt was on. Miller knew Eleanor would strike again. She was just too proud, too arrogant to simply disappear. She was playing a game with him now, a deadly game of cat and mouse. He had to anticipate her next move. He put out a quiet alert to all major furniture and mattress stores in the region, asking them to report any unusual or large cash purchases. He also put a tracker on Eleanor's last known vehicle, the white van, which they found abandoned 2 towns over. He felt like he was always one step behind her. He needed a way to get ahead, to set a trap. The idea came to him in the middle of the night as he was staring at the ceiling from his office couch. He couldn't catch her reacting to a past crime. He had to catch her in the act. He would become the bait. Miller used his own money to order the most expensive, luxurious mattress he could find online from a national retailer. He made sure the order was public, using his own name and address. He even spoke to a reporter he trusted, dropping hints that he was upgrading his sleeping situation to finally get a good night's rest after the stress of the case. He hoped Eleanor was watching the news. He had the delivery rerouted to the evidence warehouse. When the mattress arrived, he and a team of forensic engineers spent an entire day examining it. It was clean, a normal mattress. Miller was disappointed, but he wasn't giving up. He had the team install a series of tiny fibrous sensors inside the mattress, along with a silent alarm that would trigger if any of the internal components were tampered with or replaced. Then, he had the mattress delivered to his own house, making a show of it for his curious neighbors. The trap was set. That night, Miller's house was dark, but it was far from empty. A team of officers was hidden in a van across the street, watching every angle. Miller himself was not in his bed. He was in the closet, armed and wearing a tactical vest, watching a live feed from a pinhole camera aimed at the bed. The hours crawled by. The silence in the house was absolute, broken only by the sound of his own breathing. He waited. He knew the mattress murderess was meticulous. She wouldn't just break in, she would be a ghost. He just had to be patient enough to catch her. Just after 2 a.m., a sensor in the window frame of the master bedroom chirped silently on the monitor in the surveillance van. Miller saw it on his own tablet and held his breath. There was no sound of breaking glass, no forced entry. The window slid open with a faint whisper. A dark figure, clad in black from head to toe, slipped into the room with practiced silence. The figure was slender and moved with a chilling grace, like a spider entering its web. Miller's heart pounded against his ribs. It was her. Eleanor Vance had taken the bait. The figure moved directly to the bed. From a small bag, she produced a set of specialized tools. With the precision of a surgeon, she made a tiny, almost invisible incision along the seam of the mattress. Miller watched in horrified fascination as she began to work. She pulled out sections of the factory-made foam and springs, replacing them with her own deadly components from the bag. She was retrofitting the mattress right there in his bedroom. Her movements were quick, efficient, and utterly soundless. She was a master of her dark craft. The alarm that Miller's team had planted was designed to be subtle. It didn't blare. Instead, it sent a silent signal and caused a tiny hidden LED on the bed frame to flash red. In the van, the team leader gave the signal. Go. Officers moved in, surrounding the house in complete silence. Miller remained in the closet, his hand on his weapon, waiting for the perfect moment. He watched as Eleanor finished her work, carefully stitching the seam back up. She even smoothed the duvet, leaving the bed looking pristine and inviting. She was about to turn and leave. That's when he made his move. The bedroom door burst open as officers flooded in from the hallway. At the same instant, Miller stepped out of the closet, his weapon aimed squarely at her. "Police, don't move!" he shouted. Eleanor froze, her head snapping up. For a moment, she was just a silhouette against the window. Then she slowly raised her hands. Her face was covered by a black ski mask, but Miller could feel the shock and rage radiating from her. The ghost of Willow Creek, the monster who haunted the town's sleep, was finally cornered. The nightmare was almost over. In the harsh glare of the flashlights, Eleanor Vance seemed smaller, less menacing. An officer pulled the ski mask from her face. It was her. The plain, unremarkable woman from the DMV photo. The quiet engineering prodigy from the old yearbook. Her faded denim eyes were wide, not with fear but with pure, unadulterated fury. She glared at Miller, a low growl rumbling in her throat. She had been so careful, so clever. She couldn't comprehend how she had been caught. Her perfect game had been ruined. The hunter had become the hunted. As they led her away in handcuffs, Miller walked over to the bed. His bed, the one she had just armed. He ran his hand over the smooth duvet. It felt cold. He thought of all the victims, of the terror they must have felt in their final waking moments, if they even had any. He thought of the Hendersons, Mr. Abernathy, and young Mark who thought he was invincible. They had all died because of this woman's twisted obsession. This woman who turned a symbol of comfort and rest into an instrument of unspeakable horror. The whispers of Willow Creek could finally fall silent. The investigation later revealed the motive. Eleanor's father, the original owner of the mattress store, had been ruined by large national chain stores. He had lost everything and died a broken man. Eleanor's rage had festered for years, turning into a cold, calculated plan for revenge. She targeted people who bought from those big companies, or people who she felt represented the comfortable, easy life that had been stolen from her family. Her victims weren't random, they were symbols. Each kill was a strike against a world she believed had wronged her. The town of Willow Creek slowly began to heal. People started sleeping in their beds again, though many still checked the seams and tags nervously before turning out the lights. The Sweet Dreams Mattresses store was torn down, and a small park was built in its place, a memorial to the victims. Detective Miller finally went home and slept in his own bed, the safe, unaltered one that had been swapped back from the evidence locker. But even for him, sleep would never feel quite the same. He knew that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones you willingly invite into your own home.